2 days, the organized labor literally shut down the nation, so to speak, over minimum wage issues. And of course, some bodies and even the government had to come in to find a way out of it, which led to a series of meetings, after which the Labour Congress, the Labour Union, called off the strike. And so, in this week's edition of Midweek Connect, we will be looking at it, because all eyes are on the federal government to see, just as the federal government says, it will give a figure above the 60,000 naira earlier proposed, which led to the strike action. So this is what we'll be looking at in this week's edition of Midweek Connect. I am Udwa Kobong Achibon, and of course my co-anchor is not here today. I'll be going solo, but I'll be joined by a guest later on. Let's first have the tidbits. The Edo State government and the Nigerian Air Force have deepened collaboration in providing security air surveillance for the state. This was the outcome of the visit of the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, to Governor Godwin Obaseki at the Government House.
Went a long way to supporting our ground operations. I recall a couple of months ago when we had a serious kidnapping incident in the States. Your facilities were always here to help with the surveillance that we needed, and the results were quite rewarding for us.
The strategic location in Benin enables rapid response to the Gulf of Guinea to provide security for offshore oil platforms, sea lines of communications, and fishing activities.
Now, the Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki has banned the activities of Okagiles youth leaders in Edo South Senatorial District of the state as part of renewed effort to tackle cultism in the state. The governor disclosed this while speaking with journalists after a closed-door meeting with security chiefs at the Government House.
Cultism law in Edo State, and that law will be implemented to its fullest. Council has prohibited forthwith the activities of Okagiles in Edo State. Anybody who claims he's an Okagile operating in any community will be dealt with strictly according to the law.
This law has been put in place. We have the confidence that is going to have a change in the attitude of cultists or will-be cultists.
Now, the Association of Enigi of Edo South Senatorial District said they stand for peace founded on decorum, integrity and justice to settle their difference with the palace. Former Enogie of Wobanosa, Professor Gregory Akenzoa, who spoke on behalf of Enigi, disclosed this while addressing newsmen in Benin City.
We have maintained dignified silence all along. We, the members of the Association of Enigi, have reviewed all these developments. And at a recent meeting, we adopted resolutions which we choose to share with the public at this time for record and for the historical purposes. On this, we do not think it is honorable or dignifying for those who claim to be supporters of the palace to disrupt the sitting of the court.
Now, the pioneer Vice Chancellor of Edo State University, Zaire, Professor Emmanuel Aluyo, has bowed out as the Chief Executive Officer of the university, having served for 8 years. The Deputy Vice Chancellor of Academics, Professor Egbefo, is now the acting Vice Chancellor.
I feel all respect. I don't know how many Nigerians have enjoyed gospel enough to age I am less than office for more than 8 years.
He didn't rest it on his shoulder. He took it with like a sticker on his head to make sure that the dream aspiration of the school never have any issue or a moving stand.
The confidence placed in me, and I am committed to building our institution with education, integrity, and the collective spirit.
Yes, this is Midweek Connect on NTA Benin. We now take a break. We'll be back to continue with the program. Please stay tuned.
Do you live in Aduawa and environ? Or you need a conducive and open field in Aduawa for your wedding receptions, birthday parties, annual ceremony, family or corporate event in a serene and conducive environment that is close to nature? Then look no further. NTA Benin Aduawa is a place for you. NTA Benin Aduawa has a large field for all your events and ceremonies. Also, at NTA Corporate Headquarters CV Road, we have a state-of-the-art, fully air-conditioned, ultra-modern hall for all kinds of indoor events with a standby generating set, guest room, constant power supply. We also have the NTA Pavilion for all outdoor events at the same venue. Guess what? Our prices are affordable, locations are easily accessible, venue is conducive and highly secure. Our outside broadcast van is available 24 hours and can broadcast your events live. And above all, you can air your event on our award-winning programs like Events and Style. Wow! What are you waiting for? Grab this opportunity and have your celebration in a grand style. For inquiries and bookings, please call NTA Benin, the award-winning station.
Join us every day on NTA Benin Network Center, Channel 7, VHF. Star Times on Channel 103. You can log on to our social media handles: YouTube, NTA Benin, Facebook, NTA Benin, Twitter, NTA Benin 1. For breaking news, call our news desk on 091 535 59648. NTA Benin, the award-winning station.
Do you live in Aduawa and environ? Or you need a conducive and open field in Aduawa for your wedding receptions, birthday parties, annual ceremony, family or corporate event in a serene and conducive environment that is close to nature? Then look no further. NTA Benin Aduawa is a place for you. NTA Benin Aduawa has a large field for all your events and ceremonies. Also, at NTA Corporate Headquarters CV Road, we have a state-of-the-art, fully air-conditioned, ultra-modern hall for all kinds of indoor events with a standby generating set, guest room, constant power supply. We also have the NTA Pavilion for all outdoor events at the same venue. Guess what? Our prices are affordable, locations are easily accessible, venue is conducive and highly secure. Our outside broadcast van is available 24 hours and can broadcast your events live. And above all, you can air your event on our award-winning programs like Events and Style. Wow! What are you waiting for? Grab this opportunity and have your celebration in a grand style. For inquiries and bookings, please call NTA Benin, the award-winning station.
NTA Benin, reaching you from the ancient city of bronze, the cradle of black civilization.
Yes, if you're just joining us, this is Midweek Connect on NTA Benin, and we are back here for another discussion on topical issues. And one of such issues is the minimum wage. It's really burning in the country. And we know, just like we normally do, we do bring in guests here to shed light on what we have to talk about. And here in the studio with me is a legal practitioner and public analyst, Barrister Greg Iyai. Barrister, you're welcome to the studio.
Good morning.
Yes, he's always coming around to share his thoughts on issues we pop up. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. But before we go into that discussion, let's bring you a backgrounder.
Early morning of Monday this week, workers woke up to the commencement of industrial action by the Nigerian Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress over inability of the federal government and the workers' union to reach a consensus on a new minimum wage and other demands pressed home by the unions in the interest of Nigerian workers. However, this led to the shutdown of the country's power grid, the financial institutions, as many public offices were also shut down. Meanwhile, after negotiations by the two parties, the federal government and the striking unions, the strike was suspended yesterday, Tuesday, for further negotiations that would take a week. On the issue of 60,000 naira minimum wage, while some are optimistic and hopeful for a better result, others are of the opinion that the strike would not have been called off, arguing that since the administration of President Bola Tinubu, the Nigerian Labour Congress has gone on strike at least 3 times now, and this creates a strain on the country's economy, which leads them to question if this will always be the situation or will a favorable consensus be reached this time. All these and more will be the crux of discussion in today's Midweek Connect.
Yes, thank you, Former, for that backgrounder. Yes, Barrister.
Yes.
Minimum wage issue, from what we've read, is about minimum wage. And let's just establish something. We know that since the establishment of the committee, the tripartite committee, I think that was done January 30th of this year, we've had the meeting, federal government, labor and the private sector coming together to agree on what the new minimum wage should be. And at each meeting, I think there's always, they are yet to reach a consensus. And recently, I think on the 3rd of this month, the organized labor embarked on a strike after they had walked out of a meeting still on this minimum wage. So, Barry, if I should get your point, was it the right step the labor union took in embarking on the 2-day strike we had before it was eventually called off?
Well, I think it was the right thing that was even done late. The workers have a right, a legal right, provided for in our constitution and the relevant statutes like the Trade Dispute Act and so on. And then even by international conventions like the International Labour or the International Labour Organization, the right for workers to strike, that is to withdraw their services, in demand for what they need to do their work. So they were not doing anything illegal or unconstitutional. To that extent, they were right in doing so, because I think they felt a sense of frustration. You cannot have endless negotiations. Negotiations must have some. I know that each party has to shift grounds, but negotiations cannot be endless while the suffering is ongoing.
Yes, Barrister, let me ask you, when this came up, federal government was like saying to the Minister of Labour that they took them unawares and all that. While they were on the negotiating table, they just came up with that. And Labour said, we had to do the needful. And then my question is, on what premise legally can a group of persons or strike be embarked upon? On what premise or whatever?
Let me ask, on what premise legally was fuel increased unilaterally? If we know the premise on which the legal premise on which it was done, then we can begin to talk about it, because something led to something, and this action was not taken in vacuum. Definitely not. The workers were also overtaken. They were surprised. They were caught by surprise by such an action just 2 minutes after our Excellency Mr. President was sworn in. And the multiple effects of that statement is actually what we are dealing with. Not that things were not bad before then, but I mean that threw everything, beyond anybody's expectation. So I've read the statement of the respected AGF, the Learned Sikh, Silk, Fagbemi. Only those are legal jargons when you are talking of a real human situation that crushes a person every day. So I think he should have even been in the position to advise. You see, the handlers of the government and those on whom the government relies for advice should be very proactive. The government has foot soldiers. The government has legal advisors and people that mix with the people. And the government is not in space. The government is on earth, and it's in Nigeria. So the yearnings, the aspirations, the needs of the Nigerians, I mean, they should be able to sieve it. They should be able to sieve it without political coloration. And they should be able to act on it proactively. There is a governor in this country that has acted proactively, without anybody striking, without anybody even making a demand. The federal government can even do better than him.
Yes, you're still looking at the strike action itself. I know it's been noticed that since the negotiation started between the tripartite committee came on board and has been meeting, Labour has worked out, I think 3 times, and has equally resulted in strike actions. And somebody was like, Labour seems to be interested in grounding the country rather than adopting negotiation. Do you agree with this statement? Or seeing how it has been the outcome of every meeting, they're always walking away and walking out of meetings, and before you know it, there's a strike.
I don't think Labour is interested in strike for the sake of strike, but Labour is interested in the welfare of the workers. To that extent, we side with them, because you ask the question, what was the price of fuel before now? What was the price of cement? What was the price of rice? I'm mentioning items that Nigerians rely on, for day-to-day living. So what was the price of transportation? So if you are having endless negotiations, because what I believe, I sympathize with Mr. President, but what I believe he should have done is that within the period he won the election, though he was struggling with cases, and he wanted to make sure that his legitimacy was established, he should have had a think tank. Okay, if you are going to remove the subsidy, you foresee the impact, and then you also do something to ameliorate the harsh impact it will have on the masses. Because to think that it will not have any impact on the masses is being naive. Because what is governance? Governance is about the people. Just like when you are doing business, business is about the customer. It's not about figures. It's not about stories. It's not about economic theories. It's about the action I take. Because in law, what we believe is that any man who takes an action intends the consequence of that action. Therefore, when you take a gun and you point at somebody and you fire at the person, you release a shot, you cannot say, oh, I did not know that it will hurt him. You intended the consequence of your action. So that is how it is in governance too. When you take a decision, you definitely intended the consequences of the action, and you've got to be prepared to deal with what those consequences are. And that is where I think Mr. President should have been, that before coming, knowing this is what we are going to do, you sit down with your think tank and possibly even involve labor, because there are some labor leaders who are sympathetic to the president and to his party. You know, the former number one labor leader is a member of the party. You know, you dialogue, you think of what you will do, so that the impact will not be as abrasive as it has been.
I think that's why they set up the tripartite committee.
Yes,
to really look into the parameter, everything that ought to be done to come up with a minimum wage for the country.
If you beat a baby or a child and the child is crying, you do not tell the child while you are trying to find solution, do not cry. Let the child continue crying, and then you find the solution. You are going to buy biscuits or bread for the child, although that's expensive now, you know. To keep the child quiet, you can't give it to the child. But meanwhile, to forbid the child from crying is not realistic.
Yeah, because
the pain is there. You know, labor, they feel the pain, and even Nigerian workers are beginning to distrust labor for not fighting for them. So labor leaders are actually in a very dicey situation. But I don't think it's labor leaders alone. Nigerians, it must be said, you know, and let us say it, you know, the country belongs to all of us. We all have a stake in the country. Nobody wants to grind services to an end. You know, somebody very close to me, my immediate elder brother, wants to go for an international conference.
Yes, that's what we now bring it to, because when we look at the 2-day strike that came on board,
yes,
it would have had effect on so many things.
To
people traveling on through the railway and all other, what would you think would have been the
in the conference?
And you are talking of fighting for the good of the people. At the end of the day, you had issues of people not being able to meet up with.
This was brought about.
Everyone was grounded, kind of.
You see, this was brought about by government action. What Labour did was only reacting. But, you know, if you throw a stone and it breaks the glass of my house, you do not tell me why I came down to push me away from my compound. If I do so, you know, people that talk to the government, they should be very frank. And they don't help the government by keeping the truth from them. You know, they should let the government know the truth.
What's the truth you're referring to?
The truth I'm referring to is that people are hurting on a very daily basis. The prices of goods and services, they are really scorching the people. And the cost of living is unaffordable. Nigerians are suffering. Let's say the truth. We are not helping the president, you know, by telling the president that all is well. We are not helping government by telling the government that if we really love the government and we love the president, we will tell the president that, look, the people are crying, and you know, the effects of these things are crushing them. Find a solution, quickly, not endlessly. Endless negotiation will not help in this matter. And I think the labor leaders are, I'm not speaking for them, but I'm only making my own assessment. They have been patient. Nigerians have been patient. You know, but you see, patience has an elastic limit. And the elastic limit of the Nigerians' patience, the latitude is so much. But it has a point where it can snap. And if it snaps, it does no one any good. It does not want any goods.
Yes, because if you are looking at labor itself, the leaders now keep said we had come to the table of negotiation with principles, economic parameters. Said this is what looking at the economy now and what it used to be,
yes,
and everything. And they are saying, please, federal government, whatever you are going to do, we want a minimum wage, whereby it should not be less than the present net value of what 11,000 was in 2011 and what 30,000 was in 2019, and of course 30,000 elapsed April 17, 2024. So when you look at these things, is Labour asking too much, or what are these parameters? Can you shed more light on these principles and parameters they are talking about?
I just believe that the Labour, they are being generous and understanding. I must tell you the truth, because like we were saying, before this government came to power, fuel was below 200,000. You know, let's be honest, we are Nigerians. We want this country to survive. Now, I bought fuel yesterday from the pump 850. A bag of rice was about 30,000. A bag of rice is vigorously pursuing 100 right now. These are the things. What was cement? What was the price of cement? Cement was in the neighborhood of 3.5, maximum 3.8. What's the price of cement? You know, for church work, we bought cement on a Saturday, 14,000. 14,000. The Nigerian doesn't want to be a tenant forever. He also wants to grow. Maybe if he struggles through the cooperative, gets a loan, buys a piece of land, he wants to be molding blocks and preparing also to live in his own house. But you just look at, those are just a few. I don't want to talk of airfare. What airfare was before now. And there are some people, the nature of their business, they depend on air travel. So what are we talking about? So we should be realistic, and then side by side with this, maybe we'll come to that. You look at the financial profligacy of elected leaders. How long did it take to decide to give each member of the National Assembly 160 million to buy a car in this kind of situation?
Do we have the documents to that? Because a lot of people, maybe we could be speculating that this is the amount of money that was given to them. Do we really have a document to this effect that this is what really was shared out to them and all that?
Let me say this. If that news became public, it was never denied by the federal government nor any member of the National Assembly. I think commonsensical reasoning is this, that is true. And they are with the cars. You see, it's not about being legalistic. We are talking of reality. People see the lifestyle. I know that you are a federal government official, so you'll be circumspect in asking questions. But we are talking of what will help every one of us, including Mr. President. No one should mislead. And I believe that by virtue of his age, by virtue of his experience, by virtue of his exposure, Mr. President cannot or should not be misled by anybody. I expect him to take any advice with a pinch of salt and then on his own parameters make decision. I believe that some people are not telling the president the truth, and there might even be some fifth columnists within his government that want him to fail.
So, well, let's look at this situation. You know, since this negotiation started, I think the federal government, the Labour came with 615,000 naira. Before you knew it, they moved to 497,
Yes.
and now they pegged it at 494. And on the part of the government, you had a situation of 48,000, 57, 54, 57, and then we had 60 that led to what we had, the strike we had. So looking at this shifting, today you have this and tomorrow you have that, and Labour is like, let us all, government is saying everybody should come together, let's have a minimum wage that is realistic and sustainable. What can you make of it?
Well, the position of the government is laughable, because to me it doesn't really show seriousness. I'm not talking of what the proposition of Labour is, but what the reality on the ground is. We are talking of the reality on the ground. Okay, you give somebody 60,000. Can that one even afford a bag of rice? They have bag. Okay, if you buy half bag of rice, are you not going to buy some other things to take that rice? What of the transportation? To work, assuming I'm a federal government worker, my transportation to work on a daily basis, even if I have a car, I will fuel the car. If I don't have a car, I will enter public transport. My transportation to work every day, I don't know. This is not even something that we should tell government. It's something that, people in government, they don't live in space, they live on earth here. That the government itself should know what is the transportation to work. Okay, if I have a child, I'm a federal government worker or a state government worker, I will not send my child to school. I won't buy books. If I don't have a house of my own, I won't pay rent. I won't pay rent. I won't pay electricity bill. In a situation where there is even no public provision for water, won't I service my borehole? Electricity is not regular. Won't I buy fuel for my generator to charge my laptop, charge my phone, and then perhaps pump water? So if the electricity bill has been hiked, won't I pay? So these are the things. The cost of living is proposing 60,000. I don't want to use this. Is unrealistic, and I'll be euphemistic when I use the word unrealistic.
Yes, we are talking about 60,000, and this is what really led to that strike that we had on Monday and Tuesday. Because as of last week Friday, there was a meeting, the tripartite meeting was holding, and before from what I heard from one of the Labour leaders, he said everything was ongoing, and then government said it is 60,000 we have for you. Labour was like, something ought to be done more than this, and from all indications, like the TUC president said, it was as if government was not ready to shift ground. So they now said, okay, let us do what is needful, the last resort, let's go on strike. And probably going on that strike, government had to come, and right now the federal government says we are ready to give a figure above 60,000.